These are my favorite windows in WoW housing because I think they're some of the most versatile we've been given. Come join me as I put them to the test with 10 different builds to see just how flexible they are. Just before we jump into the builds, with the updates from the Midnight pre-patch, we now have access to the Hearthlight Armillary. This can be used to change the lighting of your entire interior build. It's obtained when you reach house level 6, and I'll be exploring its effects throughout. Let's get back to those windows. They're the Suramar and the elaborate Suramar window, and can be purchased from Jusenna in, surprisingly enough, Suramar. The reason that they are so useful is because of this grate that they have in front of them. It creates this perfect gap to hide other items to change the look of the window. And you can also sink the window into a wall to hide the orange glass that shows. The other thing I use with these windows is more windows. Specifically, I use these additional windows as extra lighting, and they all have different effects. The first two give yellow light and are the ornate ochre window and the octagonal ochre window. And the second two are the gold sheer window and the elven floral window. When sinking these windows into the wall, they all leave some kind of pattern. You can adjust this by sizing them up and down and moving them in and out of the wall. For the blue light windows, you can also see that the gold chair window creates a more fractured light than the elven floral window. I mix and match these to best suit my current build. When I remove the wall, you can see just how much room it gives me to sink the windows. Without it, I'd have much less flexibility. To give you a chance to compare the effects, I've started by building each of these windows in the same room. And then I show you their full impact in a small, quick build. I'm curious to hear which ones you like best. Let's start off with a simple one. Here's your shopping list. We're using the elaborate Suramar window and sinking it into the wall and then adding the treasure pile, flipped so that the underside is facing out. I play around with the rotation here, but it's not too big a deal. You just want to shrink it down so that the sides are hidden by the window. To really get the glow from the ochre light, you want to sink it just so that it's far enough that its border doesn't show and that you can't see the shadow. And here it is in the build. This one really spoke to me as needing a row of windows, and I thought that a slightly imposing Draenei Office showed them off nicely. Also, before we go too much further, can we just have a moment of celebration for coloured gimbals? This next one is found in my Draenei house as a door rather than a window. Again, shopping list. This time we're using the regular Suramar window, and then the emblem of the Naru's blessing is sized up just slightly so that it creates a border for the window. I typically use the keybinds to play around with the positioning of the light here because I find it easier to just focus on the look. I'm trying to hide the edges of the shadows so that if you're walking past, you don't notice it. For the door, I wanted to get the Draenei pink, but not too much. The trick to muting the pink and not getting any shearing is to sink the Draenei lights into the surrounding circular tables, not the back wall. To make the door functional, you just shrink one down and hide it behind the rest of it all. To me, this makes a distinctly Draenei door compared to what we get by default. Window number 3. We've gone Sindore, we've gone Draenei, but can we make it work for a race that doesn't use a bunch of arches in their architecture? Let's give this a try. New shopping list. For this window, we're using the Felsamar hanging lanterns to essentially create boxes with the bottom of the light. This gives the window a stronger structure, which helps it work for this build. One idiosyncrasy here is that the ends of the light can stick out from the wall. You can sink them in further, or use some conveniently placed furniture to hide them. Even though we are using a bunch of lights for this, I did add an extra ochre window just to amplify the glow. Before we hit the build, another moment for these gimbals. We've got colors for both the move and rotate options. For move, by default, what I'm calling Alliance Blue moves up and down, the Horde Red moves left and right, and the WoW Gold moves in and out. For rotation, in default position, the gold rotates forwards and backwards, the Alliance Blue rotates left and right, and the gold rotates around. So good. Let's check out our cozy Dwarven library. It's true that this window is a break from what you'd typically expect from a dwarf, but I think it works. We're sticking with the big Suramar window, sunk into the wall for the next one. Don't forget, shopping list. This is another simple build, but I love the effect. The window gets sized up, and the draconic sconce gets sized down. We're trying to align the point of the window with the natural peak in the sconce. Then we're using 2 elven floral windows to get some really white light. To me, the most fitting use for this window is a Paladin-themed chapel. By the way, if you'd like to see a walkthrough of any of these builds, do let me know in the comments. I said at the start of the video we'd have a look at the effects of the Hearthlight Armillary, and I finally get to deliver. Here's what this room looks like under the different lighting conditions. What do you think? We've been very Alliance themed, very pretty so far. What other directions can we take it? This build utilizes one of the housing community's favorite items, the circular woolen rug. As is often the case, I use it to change the color of a surface, in this case behind the window. We'll dye these later to see what looks best with the lights we're using. For this window, we do invest in the cost with the Fel torches that we're using. The Eredar Lord's Fel torch has chains on each side, so I made sure that the shorter ones were facing out from the window to make them easier to hide. I aligned the bottom of the large spikes with the sides of the windows and have the small spike in the corner. At the moment, the flame isn't really showing that well, so I take advantage of the fact that in this digital space, our eyes don't fully perceive depth, and so rotating the light to get the flame to poke out doesn't make it look strange from front on. We repeat this process for the remaining 3 of this Fel torch. I really love how the spikes of the torches interact with the existing grille of the window. Even with the 4 torches, I didn't feel like we had enough Fel light, so I added a Legion's Fel torch, rotated forwards as well. Now we move to the rugs. I like waiting to dye the rugs because the colors can look very different depending on what other light is present. I'll preview to decide before committing. In this case, I like the vibrancy and depth that the Angora green gave. Even keeping the Silvermoon platforms, I feel like we're selling a pretty convincing Fel Dungeon here. Well, that was 5. So time for a brief educational interlude if you'll indulge me. One of the reasons I think these windows work and are so flexible is actually because of how often we see arches in architecture throughout WoW. There's different versions for different races, but it helps them fit many different looks. Next, we're keeping the green going, but in a very different direction. Shopping list. This window is all about getting the silver of the Belemeth barrels to interact with what comes out as gold in the middle of the windows. At the bottom, I have more of the silver poking out, and then it gets thinner with the barrels at the top. I vary the pattern by rotating the way that the barrels are facing for each line, and try to find some nice patterns as I place them. For this window, I did one of each of the yellow and the blue lights, but that's definitely something that you can play with. This is another window that you should recognize if you've seen my Draenei build. For the next window, we're revisiting some techniques we've already introduced, but a new twist. We're back with the smaller Suramar window, and we're using circular woolen rugs again. For this one, I know where we're headed, so I've already picked my dies. I'm using the rotation trick for the flame from the Elven Temple brazier, and I end up adjusting this a number of times until I'm happy. I'm looking to hide the lip of the brazier in the window. In the final build, I didn't end up showing the ivy that comes with it, but I think it's absolutely possible. There was something about this window that also made sense with the fracture patterns that the gold shower window gives for its light. You might have seen this window in the brief tour that I gave of this build in my video about overcoming the housing overwhelm. This one also gives us the chance to see the Armillary in action. Wow, we're really getting down to it. Seen anything you want to iterate on? Almost forgot. Shopping list. This window is definitely fiddly, and in my opinion, it's all about doing it in the moment and seeing what looks right to you. The general concept is that I'm attempting to align the gold in the Kirin Tor chandelier. I do this by rotating some of the light so that the gold lines are diagonal, and then some they're vertical and horizontal. Getting all these aligned is not so bad, but I didn't want the blue poking out on the sides. To fix this, I play with rotating the part of the light that is in the center towards me. This sinks the edges into the walls. I think it's really just about looking at this and deciding what you like, but here are the rotations that I ended up with. And we have returned back to my Draenei roots with a garden that could be found on one of the terraces in Wad's Shadowmoon Valley. Second to last, and one of my favorite windows. And shopping list. I like this window because I was really surprised how striking it turned out to be. It's just about rotating and resizing the sin tallow candles into each corner, but I love the glow that is created from their flames. And then I tested out some small candles for a bit of extra light. I feel like this window would look amazing in a whole series lining a dark hallway, but I've stuck with the white walls to stay true to our approach. And more Hearthlight Armillary for this one as well. I will say, this whole exercise has convinced me of the value of tiny room builds, even temporarily. Most of these are smaller than a closet, they're easy to fill, and it's great to get a sense of the look and then expand from there. The final one. The Suramar Windows are Elven by nature, and we've already done a Cinderai one, so I thought we'd finish on a Calderai window. Pretty simple again, just rotating the filigree moon lamps in different directions to create the pattern. How this filled into the final build really surprised me. The engravings on the side of the window reminded me of the Calderai stone fences, and so I decided to play with it. This room somehow grew from that on its own as I went with how I felt I was led by what was in front of me. And the Armillary one more time. And that is 10 different ways to use the Suramar windows. They're pretty flexible, right? If you got inspired, tell me what you're building. I'd love to hear about it. Do the like and subscribe thing if you'd like. Thanks for visiting, and see you later.